faith. Have faith. Believe in your source.
Keep going, Bill. I interrupted you.
No, and it was just like trying to educate her on don't be a blind follower, like educate yourself and understand why I believe the things that I do or why I vote the way that I vote. Build your knowledge on that. Don't just be blindly following me and saying, well, my daddy says. So it was an interesting conversation.
Well, that sparks us into discussing relationships. And even as it leads to dating, because it is relational. What our children think, what our friends think, what everybody around us thinks. And, it's funny, prior to this, we're talking a little bit about what, your daughter saying, well, what daddy thinks is what I should think when I'm talking to my teacher in my school. And it's just knowing and that fact of how they are sponges. And we've already talked about this a little bit, and they absorb our actions and the things we do around them, right?
Mm-hmm. We set a standard.
Right.
That's set for us.
It is.
Yep.
It is. But even too, and you were bringing this up before this point too, is your relationship with some of the young men you led in youth, and what they're doing to walk out their relationship with Christ as men, young men, right? Now, and you deal with a lot of young men too, so you guys can both speak to this. But, it comes from the dating standpoint. It comes from how your walk looks, how you're building, working that field we talked about before, and then how you're moving into other relationships in your life and serving others as we do at work, as we do in different places and everything. But it all is kind of wrapped up with a pretty bow. And I mean, I think it's great to share with people a little bit about some of those young men in our church, what their idea was and why that's not a good relational step in the life.
So what we're talking about is, 4 or 5 years back, whenever I was a leader with our youth at church, there was a group of boys that I led that were all graduating at the same time. We basically had the junior and the senior class, and the senior class had some like really standout leaders in them. And I've built a connection with them and a relationship with them. And it's fun to see what was developed 4 or 5 years ago, that now that they are young men in their 20s, that they actually still pick the phone up and give me a call and say, hey, we're about to go do this. What do you think?
Yeah.
And it was a situation where they wanted to go out and make contact with people and talk to them about the gospel, which I think is amazing. I think it's for somebody in their early 20s, late teens, early 20s, for that to even be a thought in your mind, I think is amazing. And it speaks to their parents. It speaks to the church that they were raised in. It speaks to the true relationship that they've built with God. And the fact that even when pulled out of that tribe, because they don't live here anymore, they're out at a college that's outside of Austin, that's, they're at least an hour away. So they're not in that tribe anymore, but what they've learned and the beliefs that they've had and that relationship that they have built has stayed strong, even though they're separated away from that tribe. But they wanted to go on a Friday night to East 6th Street and hand out waters and have conversations with people about the gospel. And I had no clue that that's what the question was going to be. Kind of caught me off guard. I told them that I love their spirit. I love that they want to go out and have those conversations. But if you're going to take a bite out of that sandwich, like take a small bite at first.
Start with a Lunchable, maybe.
Yeah, because you're shoving that entire sandwich in your mouth if you think you're going to step onto East 6th Street on a Friday night and have a productive conversation.
Right.
But it was fun, and it was encouraging to have that conversation with them, kind of steer them in the right direction. I didn't in any way, shape, or form want to crush their spirit, because their spirit was right. You know, the direction that they wanted to go was right, but maybe the atmosphere and environment that they wanted to step into right off the bat wasn't the best. Maybe there will be a time and place down the road where they can maybe go into an environment like that. But, you know, I also asked him, I said, have you ever seen the guy on the corner of the street with the megaphone who's waving that Bible in the air and telling you that you're going to hell?
Jesus is coming. Better look busy.
Have you ever felt like that was productive in any way, shape, or form? Like,
Did it lead you to Christ?
No, you know, you can't beat people over the head with the Bible, you know, figuratively or literally, and have a productive conversation in any way, shape, or form. So I just encourage them to go out during the day. We got South by Southwest coming up. There are going to be people from all over the world that are going to be downtown in Austin on Congress during the day, where they could hopefully have productive conversations that potentially lead people, you know, to Christ. So
By the time you see this,
yeah.
South by Southwest may have come and gone already. We are recording early because somebody is working South by Southwest. Thank you, John. And I think I love that enthusiasm. I think it says something too, you know, talking about like just relationships in general. You know, when you start getting those phone calls, when you start getting those kind of things, you begin to really feel the weight of responsibility. I mean, there's that moment, like, don't get me wrong, of like, there's a little pride there, like, oh man, I made an impact. Like, you're happy, you're excited. And then it's like, oh,
But they're
like,
listening to
yeah.
me.
Misguided impact.
Did I say, and you know, I think,
Sorry, no judgment zone.
no,
Right?
really, but it's like, there's a weight in the responsibility in that relationship with, you know, younger believers and people that look to you, that kind of, that Paul and Timothy dynamic where, you know, they're plowing off your line, you know, and it's an expression. I don't farm anything. I think you make a line and they make the one next to you. It's the way I understand it. But it's like, so there, it grows that responsibility of, so I need to keep my line straight. I need to, you know, my areas of compromise, my areas of, and, you know, dealing with young adults and leading, you know, ministries like that. It's like, it's highlighted over and over and over. Like,
That zeal and that fire, you got to control the burn, right?
well, it's not so much control the burn, because you want them to burn. Right. You want them to, like, you want that fire. It's the guide the fire to the right place. And I think it's so important where there will be a time when that question comes up or that whatever. And it's so like, where they're at is so healthy, you know, seeking advice and counsel. The Bible says there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. And so like, they're seeking that, and there will be a moment when those that are in or hold a place of authority in their lives, whether it be through relationship, friendship, parents, whatever, spiritual leaders, those kind of things, they're going to feel that Holy Spirit heartbeat on it, and the release will be there to go into whatever environment it is. Right. You know what I mean? And so it's an interesting dynamic where, you know, responsibility happens, but at the same time, it's like there's excitement because, you know, I went to where they wanted to go in my teenage years. And my interaction was not, it was not to spread any type of gospel. It was unhealthy for sure.
But but therein lies that beginning of relationship too, establishing the aspect of what you're seeking, right? And knowing situational awareness. When you're in your youth, sometimes you don't have the right situational awareness, and that's where having a spiritual leader, somebody to follow, is helpful. And that's why I brought that up in the situation, because in every relationship, that's what we're looking for. And then you get into like what we want to talk about today a little bit too, dating and relationship, and what you said when we were talking about how somebody approaches your daughter and what you would say to them. That's kind of still a picture of this, because it's also how do you become relational, and what do we see in that as a young man wanting to ask my daughter out, or as a young man our sons going to ask a girl out, right? So it all kind of comes full circle, and that's why I brought up the conversation to start, because I'm like, that's every aspect of our life. We're hungry to bring that relationship and that light bulb moment we had in our lives, of the relationship with Christ in our lives, to people, so much so we're willing to bypass the vision of what could be possibly a danger situation to bring it out there, which isn't a fire that we do want to put out, but at the same time, it's through your youthful exuberance. Let's channel
it leads
to
you
South
to
by Southwest
real quick.
instead of
Yeah.
And again, if you're going to be dumb, you better be tough.
Well, but I think there are times like that. Like, we could probably just spend an entire episode going, okay, look at this scar. Look at this scar. And those are the ones that are visible.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of dumb where, oh, okay, did you know better? Of course I knew better. Did your parents or your pastor or whoever tell you it's probably a bad idea? Of course they did.
Made me want to do it more.
Like, we did exactly dumb. And I think, you get that from your kids sometimes. It's like, well, that's the whole reason I'm telling you not to. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll carry that scar for both of us. Mm-hmm. Don't make that mistake. You mentioned my girls, and, I've seen the clip bouncing around, and I kind of stopped talking before I got to what I feel like is almost more important than what to say, because that moment, that first moment where I've got to sit and have this talk with a young man, I'll be honest, I didn't know what I was going to say. And it very much was okay, God, you need to give me something. I know what I want to say. How about no? But at the same time, it's like, I'm trying to navigate what I feel God is saying to me. What are you saying about my kids? Because the reality is they're your kids, and you've allowed me to raise your kids for a time. Mm-hmm. So what do you want for your kids, and how can I facilitate that? And, I mentioned when we were talking before, that's like when I have this talk with these young men, and there hasn't been a ton of them, and I'll get to why here in a minute.
You're scaring them.
Like when I have this talk, my girls are sitting right there. Mm-hmm. My girls are in the room. My first daughter that experienced this, she was mortified. But here's what happens. It's like, it's a young man and it's my daughter. And I go through the whole thing of God gave her to me. And this is my job to protect her physically, her emotionally, and protect her reputation. If you're not ready to take on that responsibility, you're asking me to loan you a God-given responsibility for my daughter, right? And so, like I said, depending if there's any hesitation at all, obviously the answer is no. And haven't had any hesitate. one was anyway. But what happens, and this is where I feel like the important part is my daughters begin to see their value through dad's eyes. What's happening is I'm reinforcing their value so they don't settle
So important.
for the jackwagon with a great car, for the dude that's Johnny athlete, but his character is crap in a basket.
Yeah.
For like, they begin to see, and what I've noticed is those ones that want to come have the talk, that want to approach my girls because they understand their value, they weed them out themselves.
Right.
They're like, does that measure up to who my dad has said that I am?
Right.
To how important I am in this situation? And it's like, man, I knew he wasn't any good, kind of thing, right? And so I wanted to just kind of bounce it, like that's it's the most important thing. They see my value for them, but they begin to understand their value for themselves in a culture that, I mean, really doesn't value women well. And honestly, doesn't value men well either. There's so much of this mix and match and choose what you like. And, if you're too manly, well, you're a chauvinist. If you're not manly enough, well, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, look.
But that's exactly it, knowing their value in your eyes before you approach the conversation. Like,
but it's not even just my eyes. It's a translation of who he says.
Right. I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
You know what I mean?
I do. And I think that's where even people, commenting on this comment before were like, well, I'm not, bringing my daughter I wouldn't bring my son to your house to have that conversation with you. Well, yeah, your son probably wouldn't make it through the door because my daughters would have already chosen and said,
probably.
Hey, he doesn't have that value, that standard. My dad would hold him up to.
I haven't read any of the comments, by the way. So, I mean.
But at the end of the day, those don't matter. It's the whole facet of their understanding and value in Christ in their life, right? And this is how they were made. This is the value I should have. And objectively, I shouldn't be thought of that way, right? And then I said this was a home run when we were having the chat last time, because it's not only how we approach the conversation of value with our daughters, it's how our sons should see the relationships they're walking into. It's how we pursue and view our marriage, because that's another thing. And it's funny, we talk about ministries that we're involved in. I'm involved right now in learning to lead a marriage ministry, and talking about conversations and change, and conversations of how we are trying to manipulate our partners to be a better version of us, when realistically you're walking into a relationship knowing that you're two different people created completely different for different purposes. And you are God ordained, God given, God purposed for building his kingdom in this place, right? Not our kingdom come, not our will be done, right? His. So it's that approach, and that's the value, right?
It's as soon as you put a role on something and something seems like a greater than and a less than,
right?
Then there becomes like an uproar of like, and I'll be honest, in a lot of ways the church did it poorly early on, with the role of the husband or the dad and the role of the wife. And it was this real, submission became this controlling, domineering approach. And, that's not the way the marriage was supposed to be. I think it's funny. My wife and I led a marriage ministry as well. And we had like people that have been married from like 1 day to 5 years. like young, like newlywed married people, and helping navigate some of those early pitfalls, because you fall into, man, all kind of nonsense, especially early on. From experience, I probably have some of those scars too. But
I was going to mention something about the scars you get from
no,
relationships.
it's
right.
But like the Bible talks about two becoming one. It's two becoming one, right? And I don't mean just physically, but like it's one. So if I'm one,
Painting pictures in my head is not a good thing to get into this
if
conversation.
if I'm one, how am I gonna make me less than? Like, what I'm saying is that concept of making her less to build me up can't function properly if we're one. It doesn't work.
Right.
You know, and I don't want to like necessarily deep dive into how marriage is supposed to work. I'll tell you this, read Ephesians 5, I think starting at 22 or 23. And the Bible paints a very specific picture of the role of a husband and the role of a wife. And husbands, we're supposed to love our wives like Christ loved the church, in that he gave his life up for her.
Right.
And wives, you're supposed to submit or respect your husband because he's the head of the home. And I always found it funny that, like, if God had reversed the roles, like in my brain, marriage would have been easier to some degree. Like, men don't have a problem respecting. Dude, I can respect your beard. I can respect your job. I can respect your truck. I can respect how well your dog obeys. Men don't have a problem respecting, and we don't have a problem necessarily with authority structure and how it's supposed to work. We're built that way. It's like that warrior mentality, that type of thing. It's like, get in line. We're going to war. Like, we're built that way.
Right.
Women love everything.
Right.
That, like, their ability to love is exponentially
Greater.
huge. It's like they love everything.
Yeah.
But God goes, no, men, I want you to love, and women, I want you to do
Right.
the respect. And here's how. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's almost like we have to kind of change. But God, it's like he's God, and he's so smart. But like, he knows what he's doing, and he makes us tap in to that side of who we're supposed to be.
Right.
And pour into them the thing that they do so well.
Right.
And it's like when we continue to pour in, when we continue to love, when we continue to treat them in a way where we lay down our lives, it's like it feeds the ability to respect and honor and build up. It's like that thing that every guy needs, where they need their wife to be their biggest cheerleader, their biggest, and I don't mean cheerleader like their person that's always on their side, that's always in their corner, that supports them, that's there for the tough decisions and the things that, because the way God designed it, we're responsible to carry the weight of that household, not without her, because she is the support system that helps us make those decisions and do the things that we're called to do.
And this is where relationships fall short. This is where marriages fall short. When you're going into like a situation just trying to outright change a person, it's not going to work. The best of us learn that the perfect complement to us, the person that has most of the things that I'm lacking, is my better half, right? But also too, when you get in a relationship and, you know, you first start dating and you first start courting to try and figure that out. And you're taking it from a perspective of this is what God created me for. And so is that other person, which I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that that's how it worked out in my relationship, because I didn't know Christ when I first started dating Brooke, right? So it was completely different in that sense, but the foundation was there. We were trying to work for the good in each other at that point. But just knowing that, one, if your objective is to mold and shape your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend, it's not going to work.
No.
So Casey and I, it's funny the way that you're describing this. So we joke around, but we're serious about it. But we use a saying, and it comes from an old Rocky movie. We've changed the wording a little bit, but I always say, you've got gaps, I've got gaps, and together we ain't got no gaps.
Right.
And that's how it's supposed to work. Like, we pick up where the other falls short and vice versa. And then that mixed with communication is what makes a successful relationship between us. We're aligned with, when you were talking about coming together as one, it made me think of the three-corded rope. You know, a three-corded rope is almost impossible to break. And when Casey and I came together, the only way to make that three-corded rope was with God. And God is that third cord, and the three of us intertwined together, we're unbreakable. And as long as we understand that, and that we work together, we communicate together, we pick up where the other one's falling short. Like, I'm the dreamer, you know, and she's the fiscally responsible one, you know, and we joke all the time, like, yep, you're going to die with $1 million and be boring as all get out. I'm going to be broke, but I'm going to have so much fun, you know. But the two of us put together, like, if it were just me, man, I'd be bankrupt. I wouldn't have money to my name. I'd have great toys, you know, and if it were just Casey, she'd have a stockpile of money, but she'd be sitting in the house afraid to go anywhere, you know. But together, and God put us together for a reason. And I was the same as you.
Yeah.
When we got together, I knew who God was.
Right.
I had a very shallow relationship with him. So my focus was not on, is this the right relationship as far as, you know, a godly relationship. She was beautiful. We got along. I was in love with her.
Yeah.
Like, those were the emotions that I was, you know, acting off of, not, is this what God wants, right?
Yeah, of course.
And because of, and we've talked about this before, but because of intercessory prayer, because of family members and friends that have been praying for us, I fully believe that we were still maybe on the outskirts of that covering of God, but we were under his cover, and that's how we came together. And because we both had a background, you know, with God, I think as things came together, you know, he helped us in figuring out how those things were going to fit.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy. I mean, we've been married 22 years now, and we've been through some ups and downs in the beginning, right? Especially whenever we were dating, when we were on the outskirts of that covering. And then as we got married and we started to establish that relationship with Jesus, and we grew in our faith, and we got more under that covering, things started to come together and they made sense, right? Because we knew how to communicate. We knew that it wasn't a 50-50 relationship. It's 100% and 100%.
Yeah.
Like, I can't give 50%. I have to give everything that I've got to her, you know, as Christ, like Christ loved the church, you know. I have to be willing to stand in the gap. I have to be the one when there's any type of danger, whether it's a physical danger, a financial danger, or whatever. I'm the one that has to fill that gap and step in, because that's my role.
Yeah, not because
And
she can't,
right?
because
Because
it's your role.
Right.
it is in her role, and she has embraced that role. And she thought, I think we even talked about this before, but whenever she lost her job in 2008, she was crushed. She, you know, she was like, what am I supposed to do? my part of this family is this job that I have and what I contribute to it. Now we've got a baby and I just lost my job. But quickly, God let her know, hey, you're right where I want you to be. Things happen for a reason. It may feel like a storm right now, and you may not be able to see what I've got for you in the future, but it enabled her to be able to stay home and take care of Gray, to be able to stay home and take care of Harper. She started a business out of the house, which she was able to do to supplement income. Like all of these little things that came out of this small little dark cloud storm, was beautiful after. And she embraced that role and knowing, not because she needs to be in the kitchen, she needs to be taking care of the kids, but it was what worked, it was.
Yeah.
That's
What?
just think is funny.
Well,
But like I don't say those things at my house ever.
Well, the one thing that this is,
And you shouldn't.
No, I don't.
a key though, I mean, to all that stuff though, even in dating and everything, is there's one thing is communication. And that's where I'll admit, even 20 years into marriage myself, sometimes that's where I have to reset myself sometimes because I'll struggle. It's like the whole, we can engage in conversation. I could walk off and do 16 other things and I'm still engaged and listening to you. If I lose eye contact with Brooke and walk out of the room, she'll stop flattening the conversation and then I won't hear the rest of the story, even though I'm actively listening still. She'd be like, peace out. No, you're disengaged. I'm out. So it's like a hard cut. So I learned that about her, but
I don't pick up my phone.
yeah,
When my wife
you
is
can,
talking
man.
to me.
And we all three of us could say, hey, there's one thing in communication we've learned is an absolute no with our wives. And unfortunately, I still fall short to that daily.
I can't do 16 other things while anybody's talking to me. My brain turns into...
I have to sometimes because
I can't. If you want me to understand what you're saying, I need to sit in front of you. I need to listen and I need to focus because my brain will go off. And
Right.
Well, and I think like even marriage is so well described in Ephesians 5. And I think like where that kind of gets thrown off is an interpretation that it has to look like couple X or couple Y.
Right. Yeah, no.
And it's like, it gives us a guideline on what we're supposed to do. Here's the rules. Here's the way it works.
Yeah, we're not.
Husbands, you're supposed to do this. And I'm going to show you how you do that. Mm-hmm. Like how I lay down my life for Jen to love her to the best of my ability cannot and should not look how you lay down your life because we're different people. Our wives have different needs. We have different needs. The way we communicate those needs, the way we interpret things that are done. I mean, it gets into love languages and, all of those kind of things. Mm-hmm. And the way that she is with me is going to be different. You know what I mean? There's going to be similarities, but it's like I can't ever counsel your marriage needs to look like my marriage or my marriage needs to look like so-and-so. It's like, here's Ephesians 5. Am I doing to the best of my ability, to the best of my knowledge, to fulfill the command that God gave me for this woman?
Right.
And like in that, what I need, she provides through her role. What she needs, I provide. And when the trouble is, guys go, well, I'm not getting what I need. And either they look somewhere else or they completely disengage or they begin to concentrate on faults and reasons why she's not the one.
Right.
And vice versa. It works both ways. But if I really feel like I'm not getting what I need, what I should do, what I need to do is love her more.
Right.
I have to pour more in because she's not able to pour out because she's not full.
Right.
And when that thing fills up, she'll begin to do be whatever, her calling. And it's like that little cycle feeds
Well,
itself.
it's the whole thing you were saying about filling the gaps too. It's like when you're dating, and you start to see that gap get filled, and you're noticing the fact that it's complementary and it works and it meshes well, and it's exciting and joyful, and obviously Christ brings a little bit different excitement later in life to that relationship, especially when you're engaging in conversation, or you're committed to communicating, or committed to talking it out. Like, it's just even foundationally when you find a person where you could actually sit there and say, okay, these are the things, and they're not looking at you with a perspective that's like, well, there's a lot of things I could say there that they walk away from it based on perception of the things being said. But also too, it's like the fact of, like, there's a lot of marriages you learn, in relationships you learn, where people sleep on their anger. Well, the further you bury things in the closet, the easier it is to steal the joy from that relationship. And that's exactly what the devil wants to do, is put a wedge in that, because he doesn't want you in unity. Because what happens when two or more are gathered?
Well, what does the Bible say about a house divided?
Right.
It's not that it won't stand. It's not that it'll be shaky. It says it cannot stand.
And in both instances,
Yep.
you're losing the presence, right? And the blessing.
And I think, I've been married 23 years. Be 24 in October, and 22 and
21.
21. I mean, there's a lot of years of marriage, and a lot of stupid wrapped into it, and definitely saying the wrong things and doing the wrong things. And we kind of started talking. We're talking about my girls and my boys, and like that line of, I don't want my girls dating 100 guys.
Right.
I don't want my boys dating 100 girls. It's like, this is my house. This is, I don't want them dating, honestly, while they're in high school. And there was a point with one of my girls, senior in high school, about to be 18. And I'm like, God, what do you want to do? What do you want me to do? How am I supposed to navigate this? Because the standards don't change.
Right.
Right? The expectation and, the talk and all the 9 yards and everything. And the young man has been great. But again, it's like what we tell our kids is, we don't want you to date. Like, the way that the world does it now is it's like that buffet mentality. Try that one. Oh, try that one.
100%.
Oh, try that one. Oh, if you don't like
Swipe
that one.
right.
I mean, but that's the way marriage has become too, where like, oh, I don't get along with you anymore. It was like, when did covenant become contract?
Yeah.
That you could just exit out of.
Right.
And so it's like my kids, it's telling them there is an expectation that when you're ready to date, that there is marriage. You shouldn't date anybody that you wouldn't want to marry. And that's where, at a certain age, young love is dumb.
Yeah.
Because there's it's emotion. And now I know, like, I can count one couple, like, that have been together since like middle school or junior high kind of thing, and are still married today. I know one couple. And all of the people I know in the world.
That's funny that you say that. 4 of our closest friends are still married to the first person that they ever dated.
Mm-hmm. And
that's, that boggles my mind.
I think
like,
that's
it's
the way
unbelievable.
It's supposed to be. It's like there's that drawing. Now, granted, people are going to make choices. Mm-hmm. there's that moment
Right.
where even at the your most clear moment, and you could be 20, you could be 25, you could be 30, and it's your first dating experience or whatever, because you've been keeping yourself pure and pursuing a relationship with God until he brings that person that is supposed to be like, and they can still choose to be a butthead. And like, you went into it going, I feel like this is a person I'm supposed to marry. I'm going to date now. I'm 26 years old, right? This is my first dating experience. I've waited. And that person can still choose something different.
Right.
And so it doesn't mean that, okay, if you date, you have to marry the first person, but it's like a perspective of, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the day when, because this is supposed to be the outcome.
Right.
And I think you said it earlier. I mean, our responsibility is to basically teach them what the qualities of someone that they should marry look like, because that is what ultimately sifts out all of those, because there's a million fish in the sea. It narrows that down. And I think my perspective is maybe a little bit different as far as like when my kids can and cannot date and what that dating looks like, and at what age they're doing that. I mean,
even like I said, almost 18, and it's like, you're not going off anywhere alone. You're not gonna,
right?
Like,
I mean,
you know what I mean?
you're-
It's like there's still parameters and those kind of things that are laid out, because even the best answer this young man gives me doesn't remove my responsibility
absolutely.
to protect.
Right. But that's again going back to understanding the value they have in their Lord and Savior, and understanding how that value has been reflected through you to them before they get to that point, because then it at least gives them the opportunity to question the relationship they're walking into.
Well, and I think too, there's aspects of this, because it's not like you can draw interpretation of scripture and fit different scenarios, right? Like, there's no hard, fast, okay, kids, you're not allowed to date until X amount of years, or whatever. Even look at, I mean,
You're just going to create
like
a
my
rebellion.
grandparents, my grandmother got married when she was like 14, 15 years old. I can't imagine.
Okay. Then I misunderstood what you said. I thought you said your kids weren't allowed to date while they were in high school.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
That's what I want, because high school is young. That's what I would want.
Yeah.
If I can protect those years where it's so easy to be physically and emotionally charged, and you find yourself in a compromising situation, and before you know it, you've given away something you could never get back.
I mean, I have,
And
I don't
I'm not
disagree with you in any way, shape, or form.
It's not in a judge, like, and I'm not going into my background and how I did it, and because it was absolutely contrary to everything that I'm talking about. Oh, dude, I thought you were gonna Mr. Miyagi that
almost.
thing. It would have
Maybe
been
some chopsticks.
Sweet. If I had my way,
Squirrel.
to some degree, like, if I just no, I wouldn't have my kids date in high school. I wouldn't.
The only reason I say that is because I feel like I tread that fine line of, is there too much restriction, which causes rebellion down the road? And I try and balance that by, and it depends on the individual kid. and where they're at and what their maturity level is and what I'm comfortable or think that they can handle at that maturity level that they're at, whether it, like mentally, physically, spiritually, where it is. And because I've known people that's parents were Christian parents with a good relationship with the Lord that were so strict on their kids and didn't allow them to do anything that the second that they stepped out of that house, they went buck wild. And I don't want that to happen to my kid. But I want to be able to lay down rules, and I want them to understand what is right and what is wrong. But I also want to place them in situations while they're in my house where I'm there to be able to catch them if they fall. Right. And then to be able to help them understand how to walk through that situation. And it's a fine line. Like, I struggle with it. I mean, I pray about it. Casey and I have conversations about it all the time. Like, exactly where do you draw that line? Yeah. And it can be something as minor as my son just got his driver's license, and it's so what are the rules and how far do we let him go when we hand him those keys, knowing that I'm not in the car with him anymore? Okay, son, you have your license, but you're not going to be able to drive because you could get yourself into a situation where you can't get yourself out or you might die. Like, I can't completely restrict him from doing those things. I have to trust in me as a parent, what I've instilled in them up into this point, what Casey has instilled in them up into this point, what their relationship spiritually is, where that moral compass is and right and wrong, and then say in little pieces, okay, now you can go do this and see how it is. And that, to me, and you're further along than I am because you've got older kids, but this is what I'm dealing with right now is because my son has a girlfriend. He's a sophomore in high school. And we are navigating that fine line in what we allow them to do, where they are. And alone time, now that this is something that we never had to deal with before, like FaceTime. Like, dude, you're not allowed to go into your room with the door shut and get on the phone with your girlfriend. Yeah. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, I was restricted to a phone that was stuck on the wall, and
that I could pull the cord around the house.
If everybody was in the living room, like, listening to your conversation.
And you try and take the long cord and go into the closet and shut the door of the pantry and have your private conversation in there. Like, this is...
We didn't have no private conversation.
This is tough, but I just feel like if you make it too... And I'm not saying that you're doing this, but I feel like if you make it too restrictive, then you're almost setting them up for failure, because once they step out of that house under my covering, I'm not always going to be there to catch them and to help them navigate that situation. Because if something happens right now, depending on what it is, and it has happened, and I have been there, for both of them in situations where we have given them some leniency in areas and they've messed up. And thank God I have kids that don't run from me when they mess up. They run to me when they mess up, and they're not fearful in a sense of they think that it's going to be the end of the world. They know that there are going to be consequences with it, but they also know that mom and dad have the answer and can guide me through this, so I'm not going to hide anything from them.
See, but those are the kids that, for the sake of a no, because they know how you value them, how you've raised them. Those aren't the kids that rebel at the end. Those aren't the kids that it's those controlling, dominating, absolute restrictive, right. And like I said,
or it's the kids that have no rules, and they continue to do that.
And the part of it is, number one, what is God saying for you to do? Mm-hmm. because the understanding that like our kids are on loan. They're his first and foremost. We've been given a responsibility to raise them, to bring them up, to cover them here on the earth, but they're his.
Right.
And I don't fear the rebellion because it goes back because the reasoning is clear. And yeah, that doesn't mean I don't have like, well, we just want to those talks. No, like not that is not going to happen. That's not, it doesn't mean that they don't push the line that, but the freak out rebellion at the end and go like, I'm not worried about that because of everything that's been done up to this point and the understanding. Now, granted, I've got 6 kids.
Yeah.
And they've all done this process differently. From secret relationships that got found out to no relationships at all to never mind.
Yeah.
To very stable, good kid. But even in that, it's like there's still some, how far can I push the line?
Well,
what
And they're going to continually do that, especially in the younger age.
That's the thing. That's where to me, that's where the danger lies.
Right.
Because, and like I can look at my relationship with my wife and how we got together and our dating, and practically I was an adult. She's an adult. We were in church. We were churched. We knew the right things to do, and we did not do them all correctly as an adult even. Because instead of setting solid parameters and guidelines and accountability and those kind of things, we really didn't. And one compromise can lead to another compromise, can lead to another one. And now you're in a totally different place.
Right.
And that, for me, that's the danger of even younger, like my kids being in high school or whatever, for me, because I know how easy it is to end up in a situation.
Right.
And it's not this is what I'm planning on doing is going and no, it never is.
I mean, those situations
intention.
are easy to happen as an adult.
Right. Absolutely. But and we're supposed to be more equipped to deal with them than a 17-year-old.
But it's that understanding that they still have free will, right? They're still going to make the decisions. And what I heard you say is, if I had my way, right, this is what would happen. But their free will is different than our way, right? So, our restriction
to some degree,
it could cause rebellion. Yeah, there's some control we could
and
foster.
I don't even mean that. It's
but even in that, what I'm saying though is, through the foundation of even this conversation, it's understanding their value. Because if that is the key to
them, you're saying them understanding their value.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That is the key right there. If we could get that focus in them to understand how we see them and their value, how Christ sees them and their value, then like every other chip, every other piece falls into place. Right. I mean, is it going to be perfect? Are they going to fall short? Are they going to screw up? I'm with you, like, in a way where I'd rather it happen under my roof. Even some of the biggest mess ups.
I'd rather it not happen at all.
Well, I would rather
I'm
it
with
not
you
happen at
too,
all either, but I
but
just want to
if
be
it's
there
gonna
to
happen,
guide them through it.
I'm
And-
not going to
and-
invite them in to do bad things in
Right.
the house.
Right. And I'm not the parent that's like, if you're going to drink, make
Yeah.
sure you're at my house drinking. No, there are hard and fast black and white rules
Right.
that are not, no, you can't do that. Like, absolutely not. But
Right.
then there are those areas where it's like, you're maturing, your brain's maturing, your body's maturing, you're almost at it. You need to learn how to navigate these roads, and you need to learn how to navigate some of these relationships, whether it's friendships, whether it's just friendships with your teammates, friendships with girls that are friends of yours, or whether it's a girlfriend, and learn how to navigate that. Learn how to navigate the responsibility of driving. Learn how to navigate the responsibility of keeping your grades up so that you can continue to do the things that you want to do. Play baseball, have the use of your phone, be able to go and hang out with your friends. Like, to me, these are all how to use this thing responsibly.
Right.
These are all things that I feel it is my responsibility to
Navigate and teach.
navigate
show.
and teach, and
Yeah.
to an extent, let them mess up. Let them make those mistakes, because we're going to continue to make those mistakes as adults. If 99.9% of the people that are in church with us are doing something that they know they shouldn't do on a daily, if not weekly basis, and
Sometimes on a minute by minute basis.
minute by minute basis.
Right.
But the point is that we're constantly making ourselves different, making ourselves better in who we are. Because if I walked into a church that was full of perfect people, I turn around and I walk right back out, because I don't want to be there. I want to be there with people that are
I would fly out.
dealing with the same struggles that I'm dealing with. And in that sense, I want to help, just like the three of us help each other navigate through things that we're dealing with. I want to be able to do that for my kids. Yes, there are hard and fast things that I'm not going to let them do, but I do want them to stumble, and I do want them to fall and learn that lesson. And I want them to learn how to be able to stand back up, dust themselves off, and go, I'm not going to do that again, and be successful after that point and not beat themselves up.
Well, it's understanding those guardrails too.
Right.
Like we're not gonna fully give them that freedom. We're gonna create the guardrails that keep them in line and help them understand their value. But that's how we wrap it up in there. Is this is where we're directing you, and when they screw up, does it mean they lose their value?
No.
Right. So in that, it's just knowing and understanding, hey, like, we're here because of mercy and grace. Like, we have to give you that in this situation. But if I find out through my own ways of finding out the things you screwed up with, instead of you talking about them with me, there's more consequences. But it's also that in relational aspects. It's in every aspect, but that is still the hopeful understanding that we all have, is you just get that value in Christ. You get that value in us. You get that value in everything you see. And that switch goes off in your head that you know and understand that.
And I love what you said about dating, like making sure that you've established in your kids what their value is, what the value that God has given them is, and what their expectation for someone that they will date and hopefully marry. And if they do have that narrow, guideline of what fits into that person for me, then like you said, they're not going to be dating a whole bunch of people, because they're going to go, hey, you know what? I kind of like this girl, or I kind of like this guy. And then they talk with them, and then they go, as they get to know him better.
Question one is, do you love Jesus? Do they love Jesus?
Right.
If not, they're not
Peace.
for you.
Right, because you don't. So,
It's about being unequally yoked.
I wholeheartedly agree on that one. And if I have a friend that doesn't love Jesus, that's okay, because that's my job as a disciple or as building disciples to go and to tell this person about the gospel and to at least lead them to Jesus. Now, if I am going to start a family, I 100% want somebody that is equally yoked. Right. I don't want somebody that I feel like I have to try and lead to Jesus. Like, no,
I can tell
that
you where
is
the
a hard and
compromise is gonna
fast. That is a hard and fast. We need to be equally yoked in the understanding of what our relationship with Jesus is, so that we can build a strong foundation, you know, as we move forward and raise a family. Yeah. Now,
and temptation's real in that situation too. And we know and understand that, and that's how we give guided focus. You know, hey, man, you're going to get some things sometimes that may lead you astray and taste really good in the moment, but that momentary satisfaction could be a distant, futile situation, you know? So it's just understanding that. But again, just bringing it back. Value.
Yeah. You know, I think at the end of the day, you know, raising children is difficult. Navigating dating is stupid difficult. Mm-hmm. There's a part, especially as men, where we want to build barbed wire fences, and sniper towers would be appropriate as well, to, you know, keep the fellas away, and, you know, all of those things. And there again is going to be a moment of understanding and reckoning on our part, where we're going to have to answer for all of the things that we've been giving.
Yeah.
Our life, our assignment, our purpose, our kids, how we treated our wife, all of those things we will give an account for. And we are responsible for how well we walked out the things that he told us to do, asked us to do. You know, definitely, if my kids are going to mess up, would I rather it happen with me? Yeah, I do. I agree on that point. I think part of me goes, how does God look at us? I mean, knowing that we're going to mess up, knowing we like, and his standards are spotless and clean, and you know what I mean? And there's a road to grace and forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to navigate, what does he tell me, knowing that I have free will and potential, how to live, how to carry my life, how to act, how to be. And it's like that idea is some of the things, like, I feel like in what he's told me about how my kids date or whatever, where I go, if I can save you from that heartache, mm-hmm. if I can save you from that pain, then I would rather do that than you go through the pain and I have to heal you from the pain. You know what I mean? And again, it's not because I hate you and I want you to just stay inside, and, you know, no guy's ever going to be good enough, and like, not in that, but it's like, if I can save you from,
because you truly love them. Absolutely.
And to me, that's the picture that I see, where God looks at me and goes, here's what I've laid out. Here are my black and whites. Here are my standards.
Yeah.
And if you stay within those standards, I will save you so much pain, so much heartache, so many things that you don't have to go through.
Right.
If you stay
Right.
And it's wrapped in because you're valuable, because I love you, because you're worth something, because you have a purpose, you have a destiny, you have a calling, you have all of these things that I've given you. And it's wrapped within these standards of, if you pursue this, I save you from all of those things.
Yeah.
To some, again,
you
like
can't.
there's outside influences, and this goes to like, oh, well then how come kids get abused, and how come it's never God's intention that kids are abused. Some parent, some person, some whatever, they made a choice, and the kid takes the consequences for someone else's choice. That's not God's plan.
Right.
He doesn't, like, his plans for us are for good and not to harm us.
Right.
They're for a hope and a future. And so, like, I go, okay, God, well, there's things that I have no control over that I carry scars from. There's things that I have control over that I carry scars from.
Right.
There's things that, knowing what my parameters are as a believer, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as whatever, that I still screw up and have to carry the scars for. Knowing what the parameters are, I still will sin. I still will choose wrong, but I choose wrong less than
Right.
it does. Does that? And again, I'm not saying one way is right, one way is wrong. I'm saying this is where I'm at with me and my kids, and I try and equate it the best way I can to the model of how did God do it? What's his intent as a loving father, as the best father on the entire planet, like in all of creation, who loves me? How does he do it?
Right. And I think this is kind of a perfect segue as we kind of close out the night to think about over the next few episodes. We want to bring our wives in here to talk about our relationships and really give an insight and focus to how we do foster that, how we do mess up, how we do fall short, and how we work it out, right? And discuss those things, because not only are we talking about relationships as young men and women in our houses and what expectations should be for their value moving forward, but also how are we walking that out? Because you said it too, the scars are there. But this is a topic that we could talk about for 24 hours straight, and we don't have as much time tonight.
As long as I got Topo Chico.
Yeah. But it's still staying there, and I'm sure everybody else out there is probably interested in what our wives have to say about how we approach that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No.
But we'll bring it all together. John, you got anything else to add?
I'm just trying to process everything that you're saying. And again, I think I kind of think we're all kind of saying the same thing,
right?
But each of us should raise our kids differently. I don't think that there is the perfect way to raise your kids. No. And like you said, we have to listen to what God's telling us and how we should raise our individual kids, because I've got two and I can't raise both of them the exact same. The hard and fast rules are always going to be the same, but they operate on different emotional levels,
how they get there,
how they get there and everything. So the bottom line is you as a parent have to have the relationship with God that you can have the open lines of communication to understand and know how you need to raise that individual child that he gave you.
Yeah.
And I agree with what you say, but I just have this vision of bowling. Like at some point you got to release that ball, right? And we want to pull those little bumpers out so they don't go into the gutter. which are our hard and fast rules while they're under our house, so that they will bounce in between those things. Now, hitting that bumper probably doesn't feel too good, but we're still there, and we can provide those bumpers to keep them from going into that gutter, but we do have to throw them out there every now and then so that they can experience those things and learn how to navigate those things while they still have the time to come back to us while they're under our house, so that we can pick them up, dust them off, and teach them how to navigate some of those hard things.
I think it's interesting you use bowling, though, because you don't just grab the ball and throw it. Like, you set up, you line up everything, and then you aim at a target.
Absolutely.
And so, like, I do think we say the same things, sometimes differently.
Some better.
Like, I understand bowling.
Well, and that's why I say
like,
at the end of the day, it's how you raise your kids and how I raise mine. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how to do it.
No, I'm not either.
And
you don't answer to me for your kids.
Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, we will raise our kids different, but those hard and fast rules are the same.
They should be.
They should be.
I agree.
I love you, Jason.
Can you guys wake me up when you guys are done talking about this?
Touched one of my scars. Hey, if you're still dialed in with us, obviously there are some things we could talk about
For years.
for a long time. If our kids are watching, you know that we love you. You know how important you are to us.
Right.
You should be watching. We told y'all to, watch and share. Anyway, you know how important you are, and we just want to do the best job we can for you. We all of us, we love you guys. If you've tuned in, you've stuck with us this long. Obviously, we are passionate about our children and about our wives, and wanting to see people end up in a place, honestly, where you can navigate some of those pitfalls, some of those things in approaching how you date, how you look at somebody, how you look at yourself, how you view yourself, because you deserve the best that God has for you. You should never settle. Don't ever settle. You deserve the best. We just want to tell you thank you for staying with us, for tuning in. We've got a lot of episodes coming in. If you haven't noticed, we're trying to get one out every week now, and we're trying to the best of our ability to cut that time down a little, so it's an easier listening nugget. You can catch us on Spotify and YouTube and Face Talk and TikTok and all of the social media things. I think they even list them all in the comments. If you have any questions, if you have anything you want to shoot out to us, shoot those questions in the comments below. We'd love to address some of your questions. Again, we love you. We appreciate you. For myself, for Jeff, for John, thanks for tuning in to Close Cover.